Hey everybody, as you know, I'm a nerd for the history of sales to the point where I am a collector of the highest order. I am constantly on the lookout and buying books, magazines, different artifacts from our profession's past. And so, as you can see here, I've got a pretty massive collection that I've built up. It's becoming a bit of a history museum in here. But I thought you might be interested in maybe a shelf at a time, kind of take you through some of the highlights of the collection, just so you get a feel for, our profession is a lot older than you think. And the brilliance of the foundation of the building of our profession goes way back as well. And so, as you know, I do have a podcast called the Sales History Podcast where I share a lot of the lessons from sales histories past, so many that we're doing wrong today that they got right back then. And I do share daily on Instagram and on X at Sales Historian quotes and different tips, pictures, comics, all kinds of things from that era. But to start with the first shelf, let's go up to the top here. So you will see there's a collection of books up here, all look the same. It's a 16 book collection called Practical Salesmanship. Each one of these books goes through a different topic in detail into the sales profession, again, dated 1925 to 1927. It starts with just being a good human being. There's talks about that, but there's a book dedicated to prospecting. There's a book dedicated to the first conversation, the second conversation, another book to the third conversation. There's a book that's dedicated to sales management, another book that's dedicated to interviewing and capturing and getting a sales job. This set of 16 books is in immaculate condition. May have overspent a little bit on it, but I totally think it's worth it. A couple other ones to point out to you. This one here, I just love it because, first of all, it looks like it's 1,000 years old. And yeah, it is from 1910. But more importantly, this book was written by who I believe to be the GOAT of sales philosophers. It's a guy named Arthur Sheldon. Arthur Sheldon, from what I can tell, is the first individual to set up his own individual independent sales training practice, which he did in 1902, 1903. And it had grown so much that by 1908, 1909, he had bought 600 acres of land just north of Chicago in what is now Libertyville or Mundelein, Illinois. He had actually named the city after his sales philosophy, called Area, Illinois. But this is one of his books. I've got a massive collection of his stuff that's on the other side that we'll talk about at another time. But this book, again, from 1910, from the GOAT of sales philosophers, Arthur Sheldon. A couple other ones that might be of interest. This tall one, I think it's kind of funny. It is from 1922. But the reason I say it's funny, first of all, it looks like it was written with a typewriter. But second, this book is called Modern Salesmanship. The Modern Salesmanship in 1922. So 103 years ago, what was modern? It's all in here. It's pretty fantastic. A couple other ones. Over here is the oldest book on this shelf. I do have much older stuff, but this one is from 1899. It's a book from Orison Swett Marden. It's called Character, the Grandest Thing in the World. Orison Swett Marden wrote this book here, which is called Pushing to the Front. Now, the reason I point that out, he's also wrote a book about selling. He is a world-renowned at the time writer, but Pushing to the Front is essentially how to win friends and influence people. By the way, this is a 1937 print that I have of that, but Orison's book is essentially the same in very similar ways, but written 30 years before it. He wrote this book in 1899 called Character, and it's amazing just talking about how to be a good human being. Last but not least here, and again, this whole shelf is filled like this. Read Salesmanship is 1915. These three books over here. These three here are from the YMCA. Who knew that the YMCA cared about educating people about sales? But these three books is a 3-book collection. Those books are from 1920. And they're just called Salesmanship, but it goes through each of the steps, and it was meant to help educate individuals on the sales profession so that they could go be successful in the rest of their careers. So that's just shelf number one. There's so much more here, and I would love to take you through it if you have any interest. If not, and you're bored, feel free to skip it, but this is my nerdery, and in some ways it smells like the corner of your grandma's old basement, I would guess, but I love it. So hope you do too. Thank you.